Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 1483B, and today's date is January 28th, 2018, and the title of the episode is Airforce GPS Blackout in the Western part of the U.S., Prelude to Something Bigger? Now, before I get started, I just want to make two announcements. Number one, those people who are interested in putting their work on the X22Report.com site, the emails that I received, I'll be replying back to those emails, and you'll have two options. If you have a website or you have a YouTube channel or anything like that where I can feed everything in through RSS, I will give you that option. For those people who just want to write articles or create their content and submit it, I will give you the link to submit your information. Now, each individual that has a website or a YouTube channel or whatever you have, you'll have a tab under the main menu and people can see your work. When you submit something new, it will appear on the home page, and then slowly, as more information and more content comes on, it will be removed off and put into your slot under the menu options. So look for that email. I'll be sending it out, and if you don't get it in your inbox in the next couple of days, look in your spam area. It might go to there. Now, my second announcement is that I uploaded an interview with David Quintieri. It is on the X22 Report Spotlight YouTube channel. So you can go over to YouTube, just type in X22 Report Spotlight. It'll bring you to the interview. Or you can come over to the X22Report.com site or newsentinel.com site. Scroll down a little bit, look over to your right-hand side. You can play the interview right on the site. Or you can go to Steemit. That's steemit.com/@X22Report. And you can play the interview right on Steemit. Let's get into the economic collapse, political and geopolitical news. Now, a lot is happening in regards with the cabal, the deep state, where they are floundering. They don't know what to do. They're backed into a corner. They're trying to use propaganda left and right, but we can see that things are definitely starting to fall apart for them. And we know, especially with the Bundy case that was thrown out of court system, we know that the government at that time lied about everything, withhold information, very important information, and the judge saw this and said, hey, listen, we're done here. You can't retry this. You can't do anything. And now the widow of Robert LaVoy, Finicum, remember him? He was shot down. He came out of the truck with his hands held high, and they shot him down in cold blood. Well, the widow of Robert LaVoy, Finicum, is now suing the Oregon State Police, the FBI, and others over her husband's death during the 2016 armed takeover during the Malheur National Wildlife Refuge in Oregon, where they were holding out and they weren't leaving. And she filed a wrongful death lawsuit. The second anniversary of her husband's death, the lawsuit is for $5 million, each for herself, her 12 children, and her deceased husband. A total of $70 million plus court costs. And we need to remember that he was coming out of the truck, his hands were held high, and they said he was reaching for a weapon. But when you look at the video and you look at all the graphics and things like that, you find out that no, he was not reaching for anything. He didn't have anything on him. And they were basically setting him up. The whole thing was planned. They wanted him killed. And we can see right now that now they are being asked to answer for this crime. We also see Barry and Honey Sherman, those two wealthy individuals, the billionaires that were hanging in their home, where the police first said, oh, this is a suicide. They committed suicide and, case closed. Well, it looks like that there were private investigators that were hired to look into this. And this was a parallel probe by a team of investigators hired by the couple's family. And the private investigators gathered evidence to show that, no, this was not a suicide. This was a murder, a planned murder that was done by multiple people. And the reports, nearly a week after, a team of private investigators included several former Toronto homicide detectives, said they found evidence of foul play. The Toronto Police Department said Friday that they will now investigate the deaths of both billionaire Barry and Honey Sherman, because they are now looking into this and saying, yes, the information that we've gathered does show that there were multiple people in the home. Now, why did they say this was a suicide? Well, we can see right now someone with a lot of power is controlling all of this. And we can see they're starting to lose their control because now we see that there's an investigation going on. And these people were very, very wealthy. The family's very wealthy. And we see right now they have a lot of money to push a proper investigation. And we have on the other side a very powerful person. Remember, this couple work for the Clinton Foundation, the Haiti Relief Fund. Now, we could see what is happening here. There's a lot of wet work going on. And they're trying to cover their tracks, trying to get rid of those individuals that might talk later on. But this is how desperate they are getting at this point. Now, out in the Middle East, we can see that everything is really starting to fall apart for the cabal, the deep state. And when we look around at Iraq, Syria, and all the other countries, we can see their plan that they had is not going to work anymore. And they know this. They know they're going to keep trying to push their goal, but they realize that things are breaking down very, very quickly. Iraq right now, they're going to be attending the Syrian peace talks in Sochi. And basically, Baghdad shares Russia's stance on Syria and hails Russian proposal aimed at resolving the Syrian crisis as something that we would like to be a part of, and they would like to participate, not on the U.S. side, but on what Russia, Iran, Syria are pushing out there. Now, what's very interesting is as everything starts to fall apart, we're getting more and more evidence to show that, yes, Israel, the U.S., and other countries were completely involved in creating, supporting, funding the Islamic State. Now, security troops within the Syrian Arab Army, they uncovered a number of Islamic State weapon stockpiles across several towns on the western shore of the Euphrates River. They said there's enough small arms and explosive devices, including Israeli mines, were found to outfit a combat engineer battalion. The weapons were discovered by Syrian troops, and they're saying that they have Hebrew writing on them, and a lot of the electronic equipment came from Europe. And when they're looking through all this stuff, they see there's 2 K-13 air-to-air missile systems, likely taken by the Islamic State from an airbase they captured years ago, were also part of the uncovered stockpile, and a lot of the weapons that they're finding belongs to certain countries that supplied them with all of this type of material to wage their war, which really was a paid mercenary army trying to overthrow the government to have regime change, just like in all the other countries. We see that Iraq, they arrested a high-ranking Islamic State commander, and they were going to interrogate him, and the U.S.-led coalition attacked an Iraq army convoy in the western countryside, killing and wounding over 10 soldiers, and Iraq is saying, wait, what is going on here? What is going on? The cabal is covering their tracks. Now, the U.S. coalition stated, well, that was a mistake. We didn't even realize this. Well, come on. You didn't know it was the Iraqi army? I mean, think about all the equipment and the intelligence they have. They don't know that's an Iraqi army. No, they were bombing this convoy on purpose to kill the Islamic State commander, to cover up what has been happening for all these years. It's called a mop-up operation. And they can't let any of these individuals get captured and start to talk, because the whole thing would completely fall apart. And they know this, and they're trying to cover up everything they possibly can. Now, what's very interesting, we're looking at this Turkey invasion into Syria, and they're invading the Kurdish region, putting a lot of pressure on the Kurds. Kurds have already made a call to Assad to say, listen, we need your help. We're part of Syria. Boom. Number one, that is a strike against the cabal. Already, the Kurds already admitting that they're part of sovereign Syria. The second one is that Turkey has been saying to the U.S., to the cabal, listen, don't arm the Kurds. And the U.S. responded to Turkey saying that we will not deliver any more weapons to the Syrian Kurdish fighters. Now, Trump, as we know, stopped the funding of the Kurdish fighters a couple of months ago. He stopped the funding of the moderate rebels, and now the weapon supplies are going to be stopped. Now, this message came from McMaster's, who confirms the U.S. will not give weapons to the Kurdish fighters. Now, we know McMaster's is part of the deep state, and I think he was instructed to make this announcement to say that, yeah, no longer will the U.S. be supporting the Kurds. Strike number 2 against the cabal. And they want the U.S. to immediately withdraw from the northern Syria's Manbij region. Now, if this does happen and the U.S. and the Kurdish and the rest withdraw from this region, guess what? Game over. We know that this whole plan is now in play. And we can see this was their objective all along. Erdogan is not going to do anything outside of what Putin is telling him to do. Putin owns him. And if he gets out of line, guess what? It's game over for Erdogan. And we can see this was done on purpose. How do you get the cabal out of this region? You need to put pressure on them. How do you put pressure on them? Well, you force them to remove themselves. You force the U.S. to say, okay, we're not going to supply weapons to the Kurds. We're not going to fund them anymore. Actually, the next step will be there's no reason for the U.S. to be in Syria at all. This is all being done to their plan. Because the cabal has been intertwined into all these countries, and to remove them is very, very difficult. You need it to be forced out. You need it to be out in the public where the Kurds are actually saying, okay, listen, we want Syria, Assad to come in. We want the army in our region. We're part of Syria. I mean, think about it. What is a better way of getting rid of the cabal to say there is no longer a reason for the U.S. troops to be in this area, for the cabal to push their agenda? If the Kurds say, listen, we're part of Syria, we're not separate and apart. And this is what they're trying to do right now. Now, what's very interesting is that the United States Air Force has begun their massive GPS blackouts in the western U.S. during the largest ever air war drill. And the United States Air Force, they've launched what's called Red Flag 18-1 starting on Friday and will conclude on February 16th. Now, what's very interesting about this is they're testing this GPS spoofing, this GPS blackout in a very large area. And this is out of the Nevada Test and Training Range, and it will cause rolling GPS blackouts for the vast portions of the western United States from January 26th all the way to February 18th. All GPS-equipped aircraft operating in the western United States should be prepared for possible navigation failure in the region. And the United States Air Force is determined to use GPS spoofing and jamming technology, but offers no insight into what a GPS blackout might mean for the millions of civilians who live in the western region of the U.S. And the reason why I bring this up, because the blackout area is quite large. I mean, it's California, it's all the way up into Oregon, Arizona, Utah. It's a very, very large region where they're seeing this blackout. And what's very interesting about this is that every time there is some type of drill like this, like during 9/11 when their Air Force was having a drill and all the planes were in a certain area and they couldn't get them over, this was done on purpose. While this drill is going on, this is an opportunity for the cabal to do something. Think about it. GPS blacked out. The Air Force is busy doing something else. Another plane, something else, could enter the area, and we can see that maybe it won't be picked up. Maybe they'll think it's a spoof. Maybe they'll think who knows what. But while something like this is going on, this is another reason to look at all of these type of drills, because we've seen this before. And I'm not saying that they're setting this up so there will be a false flag. I'm saying that the cabal will use this opportunity to create their false flag. And this way, the Air Force has no knowledge of it, and they can use this to their benefit. Now, maybe they did set it up and say, this would be the perfect time to have this, and maybe they put it into someone's ear, and this was planned a while back, and this was what they needed, and this is why they're doing it. But we can see right now that this is an opportunity, because those individuals won't know what's really going on. Just like in 9/11, is this part of the drill? Isn't it part of the drill? What's really going on? And this is why things were confused. The same thing could happen out in the western part of the U.S. We already saw in Hawaii this missile alert that went out to every single person for like 30 to 40 minutes or so. And they're saying it was a complete mistake, but there's other evidence showing that this might have been real, and there was a real missile headed towards Hawaii, but never made it because there was an NBC crew on site. They were in a bunker. They were ready to film, and I believe they wanted the missile to hit outside of Hawaii so everyone could see the explosion and they can film the entire thing. And they're saying that missile came from the Guam region. Now, once again, maybe they'll be firing a missile. Maybe there'll be a plane. Maybe there'll be who knows what. But for this to happen at this time is very, very suspicious. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.